Hello and welcome. Um, Welcome back for those of you that are following along with me weekly, and welcome to those of you that have just stumbled or found my page or my whatever, my channel. This week we are in week 47, which is Re'eh. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but it means behold, and it's Deuteronomy 11:26 through 16:17. And then the Haftorah, the prophets, is Isaiah 54:11 through 55:5, and the Brit Hadashah, the Gospels, is John 6:35 through 57. And I'm going to start by reading a little bit out of A Year Through Torah, a week-by-week journey for Christians. Kind of set the stage before we start reading. And I've heard from a few people that this has been helpful to help set the stage and kind of create a picture in their mind before they start reading. So it says in Parashat Re'eh, Moses makes a dramatic appeal to Israel to choose to obey the commandments of Yahuah. See, I set before you blessing and curse. A blessing if you follow God's way, Yahuah's way, but a curse if you turn to idolatry and forsake the way of Yahuah. A ceremony would later be held between the mountains of Gizrim and Ebal upon entering the promised land, during which the consequences of the blessing and curse would be pronounced. See Deuteronomy 27:12 and Joshua 8:30 through 35. It says, see, I am setting before you today a blessing and a curse. Deuteronomy 11:26. So it says that the doctrine of that man has free will is considered a fundamental principle in Jewish thought, at least according to some of the Jewish sages. For example, Rabbi Akiv is reported to have said, though everything is foreseen by Yahuah, yet free will is granted to man. It says, notice that the key word re'eh, however it's pronounced, is singular, which means where he says see, you see, whereas the pronoun linefkehem, before you, so it says see, I'm setting before you, is plural. Each person is to personally see that the blessing and the curse will affect the entire community of Israel. This is summed up in the famous dictum, all Israel is responsible for one another. We are our brother's keeper. I really love that. So before I continue, I want to just, if you have a Bible and you're in a position where you can sit down and read along with me, pause real quick, go grab your Bible, grab something to drink, and come back and we can read together. I really want to encourage everyone to read your Bibles. Feast on the Word. Get this Word in you. Last portion, it had in it, the famous, man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes out of the mouth of Yahuah. And so we really need to feast on his word and get it in us. So, okay. Now I'll continue. It says here, the sacrifices only at the appointed place, because idolatrous practices were so common in the land of Canaan, including the sacrifices of children to false gods. The people were commanded to destroy all objects related to idolatry. They were not to serve Yahuah in a manner that even vaguely resembled the abominable customs of the 7 Canaanite nations, with their altars upon the hilltops and under green trees, or under trees. The 7 nations were the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Instead, the Israelites were commanded to seek the place that Yahuah, their Elohim, would choose out of all of their tribes to put his name and make his habitation there. Sacrifices were to be offered where at Yahuah's chosen place and no other. So, and then they have a section here where it says giving tithes, because that's one of the areas that's kind of unclear to me still in coming into observing Torah and following Torah, is tithing. Because, we have the whole church's view of tithing, but, so there are the giving of tithes. There are 3 types of tithes are mentioned in this portion. And it's Hebrew, of course. Masir Rishon. A tenth of the farmer's produce was given to the Levites, who did not have their own portion of land in Israel as a tithe. This amounted to supporting the priesthood and Torah teachers of Israel. So that's basically, I think, where the churches get their, the whole tithe thing is that you tithe to the church and that supports the pastor. So, and then there's Masur Sheni. The land itself was tithe a second additional time after separating the Masur Rishon on the first, second, fourth, and fifth year of the 7-year sabbatical year, the Shemitah year. This produce was taken to the appointed place of worship, later Jerusalem, and eaten there in celebration. And then there's the Ma'asir Ani. In the third and sixth year, the Masur Sheni was given to the poor instead of being brought to the appointed place. The poor could then glean from the crops and enjoy the good of the land. We remember that in Ruth, where Boaz and it was Ruth who went and was gleaning the crops, and Boaz giving her permission to glean his crops. So anyway, it'll talk more about the Shemitah year and stuff like that. So I just, once again, here, this is one of the first things here is the firstborn males. All the firstborn males of the herd or flock shall be dedicated to Yahuah. They shall not be worked or put to profane use, but only sacrificed and eaten before Yahuah at the appointed place. However, if the firstborn has any blemish, it shall not be sacrificed, though it may be ritually slaughtered and eaten as other clean meats. And so, and the where was that up here? About ritual slaughtering. The non-sacrificial slaughtering of a clean animal was permitted for food so long as all the animal's blood was removed and poured out. And so, okay. And then the next was Shalash Re'eh, the 3 pilgrimage festivals. And this is coming up, the fall feasts and stuff. So the Parsha concludes with the reminder that all of Israel was to observe Shilash Regalim, I'm butchering it, I'm sure, the 3 major pilgrimage festivals, Passover, Pentecost, and Tabernacles. Every Israelite was to make the pilgrimage to the Mishkan, which was, the tabernacle, the tent, and later the temple and other sacrifices according to his means. These were times of rejoicing and fellowship before Yahuah as Yahuah's treasured people. So kind of cool. The pilgrimages is something that I'm feeling drawn to more and more as I'm learning more about the feasts and such. It's just, I love learning about the feasts and the fact that they're coming up here in a couple weeks, and just, it's exciting. So, all right. So we're getting started with Deuteronomy 11:26. Okay. See, I am setting before you today a blessing and a curse. The blessing when you obey the commands of Yahuah, your Elohim, which has commanded you today. See, that part wasn't ever added to our Christian cherry picking of scripture. It was just like, he's setting before us a blessing and a curse. Choose blessing, And the curse, if you do not obey the commands of Yahuah, your Elohim, but turn aside from the way which I command you today to go after other mighty ones which you have not known. And it shall be when Yahuah, your Elohim, has brought you into the land which you go to possess, that you shall put the blessing on Mount Gerizim and the curse on Mount Ebal. Are they not beyond the Jordan towards the setting sun in the land of the Canaanites who dwell in the desert plain opposite Gilgal beside the terebinth trees of Morah? For you are passing over the Jordan, to go in and possess the land which Yahuah your Elohim is giving you, and you shall possess it and dwell in it. And you shall guard, he just has guard stand out to me all the time. And you shall guard to do all the laws and right ruling which I'm setting before you today. not just, think about it. We're supposed to guard it, fiercely guard it. These are the laws and right rulings which you guard to do in the land which Yahuah, your Elohim of your fathers, is giving you to possess all the days that you live on the soil. Now, many of these we're not able to do because we're not living in the land. But we can still do what we can as a practice and, getting in the same rhythm as the Hebrews, as the Israelites, to prepare when we will be with him again, and we will be, it's a great way to teach our children. It's a great way to teach our family his ways. I mean, because that's all of that this said to do is, talk about his ways as you're walking on the road and as you're coming in, as you're going out, and we're supposed to be sharing his goodness and the things he has done and the things that he's called us to do and stay away from and keep his commands, guard his commands. So completely destroy all the places where the nations which you are dispossessing served their mighty ones on the high mountains and on the hills and under every green tree. And you shall break down their slaughter places and smash their pillars and burn their asherim with fire. And you shall cut down the carved images of their mighty ones and shall destroy their name out of that place. Do not do so to Yahuah your Elohim, but seek the place which Yahuah your Elohim chooses out of all your tribes to put his name there for his dwelling place, and there you shall enter. And there you shall take your ascending offering and your slaughterings and your tithes and your contributions of your hand and your vowed offerings and your voluntary offerings and the firstlings of your herd and of your flock. And there you shall eat before Yahuah your Elohim and shall rejoice in all that you put your hand to, and your household in which Yahuah your Elohim has blessed you. Do not do as we are doing here today, each one doing whatever is right in his own eyes, because you have not yet entered the rest and the inheritance which Yahuah your Elohim is giving you. But you shall pass over the Jordan and shall dwell in the land which Yahuah your Elohim is giving you to inherit, and he shall give you rest from all of your enemies round about, and you shall dwell in safety. We look forward to that day when we're called back to the land, actually, literally called back to the land. God. And it shall be that unto the place which Yahuah your Elohim chooses to make his name dwell, there you are to bring all that I command you, your ascending offering and your slaughterings and your tithes and your contributions of your hand and all your choice offerings which you vow to Yahuah. And you shall rejoice before Yahuah your Elohim, you and your sons and your daughters and your male servants and your female servants, and the Levites who is within your gates, since he has no portion nor inheritance with you. Guard yourself that you do not offer your ascending offering in every place that you see, except in the place which Yahuah chooses. In one of your tribes, there you are to offer your ascending offerings, and there you are to do all that I command to you. So once the tabernacle was destroyed in 70 AD, the sacrifices stopped, and no one's able to do sacrifices any longer and now especially we're not in the land. We can't go to that place. So only whatever your being desires you shall slaughter and eat, according to the blessing of Yahuah your Elohim, which he has given to you within all your gates. The unclean and the clean do eat of it, of the gazelle and the deer alike. Whoa, wait a minute. The unclean and the clean do eat of it, of the gazelle and the deer alike. That's got me. What up with that? Okay, I'm going to have to look into that. Only the blood you do not eat. Pour it on the earth like water. You are not allowed to eat within your gates the tithe of your grain, or your new wine, or your oil, or the firstlings of your herd, or your flock, or of any of your offerings which you vow, or your voluntary offerings or of the contributions of your hand, but eat them before Yahuah your Elohim in the place which Yahuah your Elohim chooses you and your sons and your daughters and your male servants and your female servants and the Levite who is within your gates, and you shall rejoice before Yahuah your Elohim in all that you put your hands to. Guard yourself. Well, that's a nice little thing to guard yourself that you do not forsake the Levite as long as you live in your land. When Yahuah your Elohim enlarges your border, as he has promised you, and you say, let me eat meat because you long to eat meat, you eat as much meat as your being desires. When the place where Yahuah your Elohim chooses to put his name to is too far from you, then you shall slaughter from your herd and from your flock which Yahuah has given you, and as I have commanded you, and you shall eat within your gates as much as your being desires. Only as the gazelle and the deer are eaten, so you are to eat of it. Okay, so basically, because they chew their cud and their cloven hoofs, there's no gazelle or deer sacrificed. They can hunt and kill gazelle and deer and eat them. Just that whole unclean and clean alike thing, I gotta, Only be strong, not to eat the blood, for the blood is the life. Do not eat the life with the meat. Do not eat it. You pour it on the earth like water. Do not eat it, that it might be well with you and your children after you, when you do what is right in the eyes of Yahuah. Only the set apart gifts which you have and your vowed offerings you are to take up and go to the place which Yahuah chooses. And you shall make your ascending offering, the meat and the blood, on the slaughter place of Yahuah your Elohim, and the blood of your slaughterings is poured out on the slaughtering place of Yahuah your Elohim, and you eat the meat. Guard and obey all of these words which I command you, that it might be well with you and your children after you forever, when you do what is good and right in the eyes of Yahuah your Elohim. When Yahuah your Elohim does cut off from before you the nations which you go to dispossess, and you dispossess them and dwell in their land, guard yourselves that you are not ensnared to follow them after they are destroyed from before you, and that you do not inquire about their mighty ones, saying, how did these nations serve their mighty ones? And let me do so too. Do not do so to Yahuah your Elohim, for every abomination which Yahuah hates, they have done to their mighty ones, for they even burned their sons and their daughters in the fire to the mighty ones. All the words I am commanding you, guard to do it. Do not add to it or take away from it. This is one of the things I've just been really, we're to guard and not add, not take away. But yet, all the Christians, myself included, for decades, we celebrate Christmas and Easter. That's adding to and taking away, because it's adding celebrations and everything, and it's taking away where it says don't don't do these things. It's giving permission to do these things, and it also says all through here, don't worship me, or you know don't worship me in the way that these other nations worship. And I know many Christians, they don't see, the Christmas tree and the Easter eggs and the bunny and stuff as worship, but what do they think those symbols are? And it's that we are blinded and deceived. And it's interesting because if you really read all this, you see that those celebrations, taking away, that was the taking away is of the feasts. They're adding to by adding pagan practice holidays, and then taking away, they don't observe the feasts. And it's so interesting how deceived we can be and blinded. And that's one of my prayers, is that Father sends his truth and he opens our eyes to his truth. And I pray this for everyone in my family, all my loved ones, all my friends, is that that their eyes be open to his truth. Not that I know everything and I know all the truths, because I don't, but he has opened my eyes to the truths of his Torah, and he continues to open my eyes as more that I dig in and read it. So anyway, okay, 13. When there arises among you a prophet or a dreamer of dreams, and he shall give you a sign or a wonder, and the sign or the wonder shall come true, of which he has spoken to you, saying, let us go after other mighty ones, which you have not known, and serve them. Do not listen to the words of that prophet or that dreamer of dreams. For your Yahuah, your Elohim, is trying you to know whether you love Yahuah, your Elohim, with all your heart and with all your being. Walk after Yahuah, your Elohim, and fear him. Walk after... And pencil is losing. Another one dropped, and it's here. Okay. Where'd it go? Walk after Yahuah, your Elohim, and fear him, and guard his commands, and obey his voice, and serve him, and cling to him. And that prophet or that dreamer of dreams is put to death, because he has spoken apostasy against Yahuah your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim and ransomed you from the house of bondage, to make you stray from the way in which Yahuah your Elohim commanded you to walk. Thus you shall purge the evil from your midst. When your brother, the son of your mother, or your son, or your daughter, or your wife, of your bosom, or your friend who is as your own being entices you secretly, saying, let us go and serve other mighty ones which you have not known, neither nor your fathers, of the mighty ones of the people which are all around you, near to you, or far off from you, from one end of the earth to the other end of the earth. Do not agree with them or listen to him, nor shall your eye pardon him, nor spare him, or conceal him. But you should certainly kill him. Your hand is first against him to put him to death, and afterward the hand of all the people. And you shall stone him with the stones until he dies, because he sought to entice you away from Yahuah your Elohim. The Father, he takes it really seriously. And we just don't anymore. Who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim from the house of bondage? And let all Israel hear and fear, and not again do any such evil manner as in this in your midst. When you hear someone in one of your cities, which Yahuah your Elohim gives you to dwell, saying, some men, sons of Belial, have gone out of your midst and led the inhabitants of their city astray, saying, let us go and serve other mighty ones whom you have not known. Then you shall inquire, search out, and ask diligently, and see if the matter is true, and establish that this abomination was done in your midst. And you shall certainly strike the inhabitants of that city with the edge of the sword, putting all under the ban, meaning killing everybody, and all that is in it, and its livestock within the edge of it, with the edge of the sword, and gather all its plunder unto the middle of the street, and completely burn with fire the city and all its plunder before Yahuah your Elohim, and it shall be a heap forever, never to be built again. And none of that which is put under the ban is to cling to your hands, so that Yahuah turns from the fierceness of his displeasure, and shall show you compassion, love, and increase you, as he swore to your fathers. When you obey the voice of Yahuah your Elohim, to guard all his commands which I command you today, to do what is right in the eyes of Yahuah your Elohim. You are the children of Elohim, of Yahuah, your Elohim. Do not cut yourselves, nor shave the front of your head for the dead, for you are set apart people, and Yahuah your Elohim, and Yahuah has spoken to be a people for him, has chosen you to be a people for himself, a treasured possession above all people who are on the face of the earth. Do not eat whatever is abominable. These are the living creatures which you do eat: ox, sheep, goat, deer and gazelle, and roebuck, wild goat, mountain goat, and antelope, and mountain sheep, and every beast that has a split hoof divided in two, chewing the cud among the beasts you do eat. But of those chewing the cud, those having a split hoof completely divided, you do not eat, such as these: the camel, the hare, the rabbit, for they chew their cud, but they do not have a split hoof, they are unclean. The pig is unclean for you because of its split hoof, but does not chew the cud. You do not eat their flesh or touch their dead carcasses. These you do eat of all that are in the waters, all that have fins and scales you do eat. And whatever does not have fins and scales you do not eat, it is unclean for you. Any clean bird you do eat, but those you do not eat, and this is interesting, the ones you don't eat are the scavengers, the eagle, the vulture, the black vulture, the red kite, the falcon, the buzzard after their kinds, and every raven after its kind, and the ostrich and the nighthawk and the seagull and the hawk of their kinds, the little owl and the great owl and the white owl and the pelican and the carrion vulture and the fisher owl and the stork and the heron after its kind and the hoopoi and the bat. And every creeping insect that flies is unclean for you. They are not to be eaten. Any creeping insect that flies is unclean for you. They are not to be eaten. Any clean bird you do eat. Do not eat whatever dies of itself. Give it to the sojourner who is within your gates to eat it, or sell it to a foreigner, for you are a set-apart people to Yahuah your Elohim. Do not cook a young goat in its mother's milk. You shall tithe without fail all the yield of your grain, and the field brings forth year by year. And you shall eat before Yahuah your Elohim in the place where he chooses to make his name dwell, the tithe of your grain and your new wine and your oil, and of the firstlings of your herd and your sheep, so that you learn to fear Yahuah your Elohim always. But when the way is too long for you, so that you are not able to bring the tithe, or when the place where Yahuah your Elohim chooses to put his name is too far for you, when Yahuah your Elohim is blessing you, then you shall give it in silver, and shall take the silver in your hand and go to the place which Yahuah your Elohim chooses. And you shall use the silver for whatever your being desires, for cattle and sheep, for wine, strong drink, or whatever your being desires. And you shall eat there before Yahuah your Elohim, and you shall rejoice, you and your household. So I guess if it's too far to like take your animals there, you take money and go buy the animals there. I think that's what it means. So, and you do not forsake the Levite who is within your gates, for he has no part nor inheritance with you. At the end of every third year, you bring out all of the tithe of your increase of that year and store it up within your gates. And the Levite, because he has no portion nor inheritance with you, and the sojourner and the fatherless and the widow who are within your gates shall come and eat and be satisfied, so that Yahuah your Elohim does bless you in the work of your hand which you do. 15. At the end of every 7 years, you make a release of debts. And this is the word of the release. Every creditor is to release what he has loaned to his neighbor. He does not require it of his neighbor or his brother, because it is called the release of Yahuah. Of the foreigner, you could require it, but your hand is to release whatever is owed by your brother. Only there should be no poor among you. For Yahuah does greatly bless you in the land which Yahuah your Elohim is giving you to possess as an inheritance. Only if you diligently obey the voice of Yahuah your Elohim to do all the commands which I am commanding you today. You know, that's something that's really just been going around in my head for the past couple of weeks. It's like, as Christians, we quote these little scriptures here and there, but then we don't, they're just, like I said, cherry picked. And several of these scriptures, we stood on, it said blessing and cursing. And then this one here, but it says that to guard all of these commands, which I'm commanding you. We as Christians, we want all the blessings, but don't think that we have to follow the law. And it just goes on and on and on here, that you have to diligently obey the voice of Yahuah your Elohim to guard and to do all of these commands which I'm commanding you today. For Yahuah your Elohim shall bless you as he promised you, and he shall and you shall lend to many nations, but you shall not borrow, and you shall rule over many nations, but they will not rule over you, if you keep the commands. When there is a poor man with you, one of your brothers within any of the gates of your land, which Yahuwah your Elohim is giving you, do not harden your heart, nor shut your hand from your poor brother. For you shall certainly open your hand to him and certainly lend him enough for his need, whatever he needs. Be on guard. I'd love to count it up how many times it says that. Lest there be any thought of Belial in your heart, saying, the 7th year, the year of release is near, and your eye is evil against your poor brother, and you give him not, and he shall cry out to Yahuwah against you, and it shall be a sin in you. You shall certainly give to him, and your heart should not be grieved when you give to him. Besides, for this reason, Yahuwah your Elohim does bless you in all of your works, and in all of which you put your hand. Because the poor one does not cease from the land, therefore I am commanding you, saying, you shall certainly open your hand to your brother and to your poor and to the needy one in your land. When your brother is sold to you, a Hebrew man or a Hebrew woman, and shall serve you 6 years, then let him go free from you in the 7th year. And when you send him away free from you, let him not go away empty-handed. So not only just let him go, but send him with provisions. You shall richly supply him from your flock and from your threshing floor and from your winepress. So the mentality should be, what a blessing that you had that this person was there to help you in your world, and send them out with a blessing. And you shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Mitzrayim, and that your Elohim ransomed you. Therefore, I am commanding you this word today. And it shall be when he says to you, I do not go away from you, because he loves you and your house, because it is good for him with you. Then you shall take an owl and thrust it through his ear to the door, and he shall be your servant forever. Do the same to your female servant. Let it not be hard in your eyes when you send him away free from you, for he has been worth a double hired servant in serving you 6 years. See, exactly. I mean, what a blessing. So bless him as you release him. And Yahuwah your Elohim, and when you do, Yahuwah your Elohim shall bless you in all that you do. It's such a mindset switch to learn to be generous and not hoard and hold on to, but freely give. It's such a switch. So set apart to Yahuwah your Elohim all the firstborn males that come from your herd and your flock. Do no work with the firstborn of your herd, nor shear the firstborn of your flock. You and your house are to eat it before Yahuwah your Elohim year by year in the place which Yahuwah chooses. But when there is any defect in it, lame or blind, or has any evil defect, do not slaughter it to Yahuwah Elohim. Eat it within your gates, the unclean and the clean alike. So it must mean, eat it within your gates, the unclean and the clean alike. Yeah, I've got to do some reading on and searching on this, because I know that's probably just in the way it's, it says, as the gazelle and as the deer. Only do not eat its blood, pour it on the ground like water. Guard the new moon of Abib and perform the Pesach, the Passover, to Yahuwah your Elohim, for in the new moon of Abib, Yahuwah your Elohim brought you out of Mitzrayim by night. And you shall slaughter the Pesach, Passover lamb, to Yahuwah your Elohim from the flock and the herd in the place where Yahuwah chooses to put his name. Eat no leavened bread with it. For 7 days you eat unleavened bread with it, bread of affliction, because you came out of the land of Mitzrayim in haste, so that you remember the day in which you came out of the land of Mitzrayim all the days of your life. Oh, that we had kept this tradition, and instead of having to learn it in my old age, it would have been amazing to this have been just part of my life. I mean, we all wish that. And no leaven should be seen with you in all of your borders for 7 days, neither should any of the meat which you slaughter in the evening on the first day shall stay all night until morning. You are not allowed to slaughter the Pesach within any of your gates which Yahuwah your Elohim gives you, but at the place where Yahuwah your Elohim chooses to make his name dwell. There you slaughter the Pesach in the evening at the going down of the sun at the appointed time you came out of Mitzrayim. And you shall roast it and eat it in the place which Yahuwah your Elohim chooses, And in the morning you shall turn and go to your tents. 6 days you eat unleavened bread, and on the seventh day there is a closing festival to Yahuah your Elohim. You do no work. Count 7 weeks for yourself. Begin to count 7 weeks from the time you began to put the sickle to the grain, and you shall perform the festival of Shavuot. And Yahuah your Elohim, to Yahuah your Elohim, according to the voluntary offering from your hand, which you give as Yahuah your Elohim blesses you. And you shall rejoice before Yahuah your Elohim, and you and your son, and your daughter, and your male servant, and your female servant, and the Levite who is within your gates, and the sojourner, and the fatherless, and the widow who are in your midst, at the place where Yahuah your Elohim chooses to make his name dwell. And you shall remember that you were a slave in Mitzrayim, and you shall guard and do these laws. Perform the festival of Sukkot for 7 days. This is coming up, and I'm excited. Perform the festival of Sukkot for 7 days after the ingathering from your threshing floor and from your winepress. And you shall rejoice in your festival, you and your sons and your daughters and your male servants and your female servants and the Levite and the sojourner and the fatherless and the widow who are within your gates. For 7 days you shall celebrate to Yahuah your Elohim in the place which Yahuah chooses. Now see, we're not able to do that, but that's why we're not sacrificing, because there is no temple to sacrifice in. But we're still observing the festival as a remembrance and to practice and just to keep it, because all of these festivals point to Yahushua, our Messiah. So, because Yahuah your Elohim does bless you in all your increase and all the work of your hands, and you shall be only rejoicing. 3 times a year, all of your males appear before Yahuah your Elohim in the place which he chooses at the festival of Matzot, and at the festival of Shavuot, and at the festival of Sukkot. So, Passover, Shavuot, Sukkot. And none should appear before Yahuah empty-handed, but each one with the gift of his hand, according to the blessing of Yahuah your Elohim, which he gives you. So that is the Torah portion. Next is the Haftorah. And it is Isaiah 54, 11 through 55, 5. Oh, you afflicted one, tossed with storm and not comforted. See, I am setting your stones in antimony, and shall lay your foundations with sapphires. And you shall make your battlements of rubies, and your gates of crystal, and all of your walls of precious stones. And all your children taught by Yahuah, and the peace of your children great. In righteousness you shall be established, far from oppression, for you shall not fear, and far from ruin, for it does not come near you. See, they shall indeed assemble, but not because of me. Whoever shall assemble against you falls for your sake. See, I myself have created the blacksmith who blows the coals in the fire, who brings forth an instrument for his work, and I have created the waster to destroy. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue which rises against you in judgment you shall prove wrong. This is the inheritance of the servants of Yahuah, and their righteousness from me, declares Yahuah. Talk about one that, as Christians, we no weapon formed against me shall prosper. That's if. These are all, if-then statements, not just name it and claim it. So 55, 1. Of everyone who thirsts, come to the waters, and you who have no silver, come and buy and eat. Come, buy wine and milk without silver and without price. Why do you weigh out silver for what is not bread, and your labor for what does not satisfy? Listen to me, and eat what is good, and let your being delight itself in fatness. Incline your ear and come to hear, so that your being lives. And let me make an everlasting covenant with you, the trustworthy, loving commitments of David. See, I have given him as a witness to the people, a leader and a commander for the people. See, a nation you do not know you shall call, and a nation who does not know you run to you, because of Yahuah your Elohim and the set apart one of Israel, for he has adorned you. And the Brit Hadashah is John 6:35 through 51. And Yahushua said to them, I am the bread of life. He who comes to me shall not get hungry at all, and he who believes in me shall not get thirsty at all. But I said to you that you have seen me and still do not believe. All that the Father gives me, I shall come to me, and the one who comes to me shall by no means be cast out. Because I have come down out of heaven, not to do my own desire, but the desire of him who sent me. So this is the part that the disconnect, when you really think about it, if he's coming to do the desire of him who sent him, we have all of the Torah telling us what his desires are. And Yahushua, the Messiah, Jesus the Messiah, he followed all of the Torah perfectly. This is the desire of the Father who sent me, that all he has given me I should not lose of it, but should raise in it in the last day. And this is the desire of him who sent me, that everyone who sees the Son, believes in him, should possess everlasting life, and I shall raise him up in the last day. Therefore, the Yahudim, the Jews, were grumbling against him because he said, I am the bread which came down out of heaven. And they said, is it not this Yahusha, the son of Yosef, whose father and mother we know? How is it then that he says, I have come down out of heaven? Then Yahusha answered and said to them, do not grumble with one another. No one is able to come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him, and I shall raise him up in the last day. This is something that Father's just really been impressing upon me. You know, we cannot convince, convict, or condemn anyone. It is the Holy Spirit. It says here, no one is able to come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him. So that needs to be our prayer is, Father, draw them to you, draw them into covenant with you, draw them into your truth. Because we can share all we want, but unless the Father opens their eyes, it won't, it's for nothing. It has been written in the prophets, and they shall be taught by Yahuah. Everyone then who has heard from the Father and learned comes to me. Not that everyone has seen the Father except him who is from Elohim. He has seen the Father. Truly, I say to you, he who believes in me possesses everlasting life. I am the bread of life. Your fathers ate the manna in the wilderness, and they died. This is the bread which comes down out of heaven, so that anyone might eat of it and not die. I am the living bread which came down out of the heaven. If anyone eats of this bread, he shall live forever. And indeed, the bread that I shall give is my flesh, which I shall give for the life of the world. You know, that's what I was saying. We need to feast on the word made flesh, the word. Feast on him. Then the Yahudim therefore were striving with one another, saying, how is this one able to give us his flesh to eat? Yahusha therefore said to them, truly, I say to you, unless you eat the flesh of the son of Adam and drink his blood, you possess no life in yourself. That had to have been really controversial because of the whole thing about eating and drinking blood. He who eats my flesh and drinks my blood possesses everlasting life, and I shall raise him up in the last day. No wonder they were so infuriated by the stuff he was saying, because, I mean, this goes completely against Torah. And they're more focused on Torah than they're focused on the letter of the law instead of the spirit of the law. He who eats my flesh and drinks my blood possesses everlasting life, and I shall raise him up in the last day. For my flesh is truly food, and my blood is truly drink. Wait a minute, where was I supposed to go to? 51. I've already passed it. 51. I don't know why I didn't mark it. There we go. So I went past, but yeah. I am the living bread which came down out of heaven. If anyone eats of this bread, he shall live forever. And indeed, the bread that I shall give is my flesh, which I shall give for the life of the world. So that is our Torah portion. We got done early today. I hope everyone's blessed. I hope you've been doing well. I pray blessing and peace and health and healing over your lives, Father. Send out your healing touch. Send out your peace, Father, to everyone who's listening today. Bless their lives, bless their homes, bless their families. Open their eyes to your truths. Bring them further into covenant each and every day. Teach us your ways, my King. Teach us your ways. In Yahushua's mighty name. Amen. Thanks for joining me. Be blessed, and we will see you next week, Yah willing. Bye.